Hey, what is going on, everybody? It's Brandon. Welcome back to Marotta Media. So today will be my last full-length review dedicated to one movie for the year of 2024. And the movie that I'm reviewing in this video, I know I am very late in talking about because it came out over a month ago. But it's a movie that I really wanted to talk about, and I also wanted to get out one last review before the end of the year and before I make my best and worst of the year lists. And the movie that is at the subject of this review is none other than the global phenomenon, Wicked. I'm sure a lot of you are aware, but just in case you're not, Wicked is a movie that is based off of the stage play of the same name, which is based off of a book which was a prequel to the Wizard of Oz book. And in this movie, we get to know the Wicked Witch of the West, as she is called in The Wizard of Oz, but in this movie, it's revealed that her real name is Elphaba. And we see her life leading up to how she became the Wicked Witch of the West, along with Glinda, the Good Witch, who you might also recognize from The Wizard of Oz. Now, I was really excited for this movie. I was really riding the hype train all throughout, because when this movie's trailer was first shown at the Super Bowl at the beginning of this year, I thought, that looks really good. And it certainly seemed like I was in the minority, because when this trailer was first released, it was the victim of all of the people who suddenly became experts in filmmaking, especially when it came to color grading and lighting. I understood some of the complaints here and there, but to say that the movie as a whole looks terrible, I was like, I think this looks really good. Because I am a big fan of the Wicked play. I have seen the play live 3 times, but that is nothing compared to my mother, who has seen Wicked on stage, I think, 15 times. So she was very excited for this movie. She was telling me constantly leading up to it that we're gonna go see it, and I'm like, yes, of course. I'm probably not gonna go see this with anyone else. I don't even know anyone else who would go see this with me. And I have never seen my mom that excited for a movie in my entire life. But I was also really looking forward to this movie because it was directed by Jon Chu, and Jon Chu directed In the Heights in 2021. And if you guys have been following me for a while, you will know how much I love In the Heights. I absolutely adore that movie. So the fact that a guy that was going to direct a movie musical that good was given the reins of Wicked, that was enough for me to be excited and very optimistic. But her excitement and my excitement seemed to be warranted, because not only is Wicked fantastic, I think that this is one of the best movies of the year. This is a movie that is such a beautiful adaptation of one of the most famous stage plays of all time. It's very faithful to the source material, but at the same time, it feels like a fresh new take on this story. And there are just so many great things about this movie that I could just talk about for hours and give praise to. Starting with the obvious, that being the performances from our 2 leads, Cynthia Erivo as Elphaba and Ariana Grande as Glinda. Both of these people are magnificent in this movie. I've seen Cynthia Erivo in a handful of things, and I always knew she was talented, but this is definitely the best I've ever seen her. And she definitely gives the more impressive vocal performance. I've always known that she could sing. I've seen her sing in other movies, and I've heard her songs. She's a phenomenal singer. And she really shows off that shyness and vulnerability in the character of Elphaba really well. But Ariana Grande, on the other hand, does a great job too, but in very different ways. We've always known that Ariana Grande was a great singer, but I never really knew that she had this ability to act. Because all I've seen Ariana Grande in are the little roles that she had in some movies like Don't Look Up, and of course how she started on shows on Nickelodeon like Victorious. And I love that show, by the way. That's one of my favorite childhood shows. But it was nice to see Ariana Grande break the mold of the typecast that she was always put into, because she always played kind of a dimwit. And there are elements to Glinda's character that are kind of dim-witted, but at the same time, she is a really good character who knows how to take care of herself. She's very smart and very resourceful. But the best thing about her performance was her comedic timing. It was just impeccable. Her character made me laugh the most by far. But I liked everybody in this movie, matter of fact, except one performance, but I'll get to that. Peter Dinklage as Dr. Dillamon was great. Ethan Slater did a good job, and I think Jonathan Bailey as Fiyero was excellent. But to me, the key element for a great movie musical is a musical that understands how grand the music is supposed to be. And Wicked does exactly that. Wicked has some of the best songs ever written for a musical, and all of the musical numbers in this movie are fully realized. They're so over the top and grandiose. There is so much happening on screen, and I'm like, yes, that is what a good movie musical needs to do. Because some movie musicals play it very safe and do something very small, like the Mean Girls musical earlier this year. And the musical numbers are all so much fun with all of these songs that you know and love if you were familiar with the source material. The Wizard and I, Dancing Through Life, What Is This Feeling, Popular, and of course Defying Gravity, all of these musical numbers were so well done. And on the topic of grandiose, this movie does just about everything as big as you could possibly imagine. Especially when it came to its set design, because the sets in Wicked are unbelievable. They're huge and gorgeous to look at, and they were done practically for the most part. And I really respect that they did that, because this is a movie that could have cheaped out and used nothing but CGI. And they do use CGI, don't get me wrong, but they built a lot of these sets from the ground up. And I feel like you really don't see effort like that anymore. And on top of the sets, the costumes are equally as amazing. One of the topics of criticism that I've heard with this movie going way back to when the trailer was first released, as I said, was the colors being very bland and mute. But I really disagree with that. I found this movie to be beautiful to look at. I think it fully realized the land that is Oz and the Emerald City and Munchkin Land. It was all very colorful, and I could see here and there sometimes that the colors don't look as good as other parts, so I understand the criticism to an extent. But for the most part, I think this movie was gorgeous. But as I said, there aren't a ton of changes to this movie. It feels very faithful to the source material that it's adapting. There are changes here and there is one gigantic one, but I'll get to that in a second. But for the most part, I feel like the movie didn't do anything too extreme in terms of changes. But I like that they didn't change too much because the source material is just so good. But at the same time, this feels like a very fresh and original take on this story. I'm not exactly sure how they did it, but maybe it was just in terms of the presentation and what they decided to do for the costumes and the production design, but it all felt very new. And that one big change that I mentioned was the runtime. Because Wicked as a movie has a runtime of about 2 hours and 40 minutes, nearly 3 hours long, and this is only part 1. There is a second part being released next year in 2025. And if you've seen the Wicked play, you know exactly where this movie ends. It ends where the first act would end if you were watching the play. And the play itself is about 2 hours and 40 minutes. So they took the entire runtime of the play and made that just one half of this movie. And you would think that that would be a problem, but it honestly wasn't. I thought this movie just flew by. It did not feel like nearly 3 hours long at all. Which is saying something, because I've seen quite a few movies this year that were less than 2 hours and they felt longer than this. But I also think that this movie is very accessible, not only to fans of the play, but to people who may not be familiar with it as well. And it certainly seems like that is the case, because just about everyone I've seen who has not seen the play before seems to be really liking this movie. And I can understand why, because there are some pretty heavy themes that are tackled within Wicked. I know a lot of people who aren't familiar might think that on the surface this is just a gigantic ripoff of The Wizard of Oz, but it isn't that at all. It's so much more. This movie tackles very heavy themes such as friendship, family, racism, obviously, and even propaganda. It goes very deep, and the way that the original story was written and how it places all of these little hints about the Wizard of Oz throughout is just so smart. And all of the things that are revealed in this movie to someone who might not be familiar with Wicked but has seen the Wizard of Oz, I think that they will really get something out of it. As great as I think Wicked is, I do think that it has a few problems. For example, I think the CGI is a little bit inconsistent. There are times when the CGI just looks breathtaking, and then there are other times where it doesn't look good at all. And it does look a little distracting in parts, especially the parts with the monkeys. And the only other complaint that I have would be that one performance that I mentioned earlier, and that is Jeff Goldblum. Jeff Goldblum plays the wizard, and I think he was a good choice for this part, but more or less, he's just playing himself. Jeff Goldblum is a phenomenal actor. He has been in some of the most iconic movies ever. But in this movie, it's just not that great. It's not that he's phoning in his performance, he's giving it his all, because Jeff Goldblum is a lot of things, but I don't think he's a man that's just gonna phone in a performance and not give it everything he has. It's more so it just doesn't feel like he added any flair to the character. And some people might be okay with that because Jeff Goldblum is just a very naturally funny man, so I understand why some people might like this performance, but it just didn't work for me. It wasn't distractingly bad, but I was just hoping for a little bit more. But other than that, I think that this movie was truly phenomenal. As I said, I saw this movie over a month ago, and I have not stopped thinking about it since. I've been listening to the soundtrack a lot, as I'm sure most of the country has, and this movie has taken on just a true cultural status. The amount of excitement I saw for this movie leading up to it and all the videos that I'm still seeing on social media regarding this movie is incredible. Just people dancing to the songs or using the songs in a joking manner, it's just so much fun. And when a movie has that ability on the general public, you know that it was a really big deal. And that's happened with a few movies this year, and Wicked is the latest one and probably the last one that we're going to get this year. But yeah, I thought this movie was fantastic. I truly had a great time with it. It is a very faithful adaptation while feeling fresh at the same time. It's so much fun, the acting is incredible, the direction is great, it's shot really well, the music is amazing. It's just a really good time at the movies. And overall, I would give Wicked a 9 out of 10. Hey everybody, thank you so much for watching my review of Wicked. If you guys saw this movie, let me know what you thought about it. Did you love it? Did you hate it? Did you like it more than the play, if you've seen the play? If you guys like this review, be sure to hit that thumbs up and do not forget to subscribe. If you want to see my previous reviews, I will link those right over here. Other than that, I hope you all have a tremendous rest of your day. Thank you for watching my final review of the year, and I will see you all next time when we go over the worst and best movies of 2024.